Yes, today I'm going to talk about these symbols found on FM synthesizers. What do they mean, how to read them, and which one to choose for a specific kind of sound you're trying to create. And of course I'll provide some sound examples. Hi, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel, and if you think that's an interesting topic to talk about, please join me in this video. Here we go. Right, let's walk through the basics first. FM is an abbreviation for frequency modulation. I've shown in one of my earliest videos that it's phase modulation really, but we'll stick to the official terms here. A classic FM synthesizer can create sine waves only, but you can use one sine wave to modulate another. Modulating the sine wave changes its harmonic content by adding overtones. Let's take a look at a typical FM algorithm. Here you can see some squares connected by lines. Each square represents one sine wave in your FM synthesizer, and the line shows that one sine wave is modulating the one below it. You read these charts from bottom to top. On the bottom, you'll find the sine waves that are actually used for creating sound. Higher up, you'll find the sine waves that are used to modulate the sine waves that are creating the sound. Modulating means changing the sound periodically over time. In FM terms, all of the sine waves are referred to as operators. The sine waves creating the sound in the bottom row of this chart are called carriers because they kind of carry the sound. All the other operators are called modulators because they modulate or shape the sound. Going back to our algorithm chart, we can see two carriers. Each of the carriers has three modulators stacked on top of them. So one modulator modulates the carrier, the next modulator modulates that resulting sound, and the last modulator in this stack then modulates the modulation of the modulation. So what does a modulation actually sound like? Well, generally the sine wave will sound more metallic, the stronger the modulation is. You can also change the frequency of the modulator, which in FM terms is called the ratio. Changing the ratio from 1 to 2 will double the frequency of the modulator, which is equivalent to 1 octave. Exploring floating point number ratios will give you sounds that change over time. Using amp envelopes that change the volume over time allows you to move from a sound rich in overtones to more pure sound and vice versa. Using pitch envelopes, which change the frequency over time on modulators, allows you to move from a sound rich in high-frequency overtones to more moderate sounds. This can be useful for creating thuds or clicks at the start of a sound. Using LFOs or low-frequency oscillators allow for sound modulations that go back and forth over time. Knowing this, we can now choose an algorithm suitable for the sound we're trying to create here. A big stack of modulators will allow for sounds rich in overtones like noises, bells, strings and reed sounds. A big base of carriers enables us to create less complex sounds that can then be detuned against each other. They're suited for ensemble-like or church or Hammond organ type of sounds. Let's take a look at some more complex algorithms now. Here, one carrier is modulated by two operators. This means one carrier frequency is modulated by two operators. This results in an even richer spectrum of overtones. Here, it's the opposite case. Two carriers are modulated by one common modulator. This means we also get a bigger than usual spectrum of overtones, but because it's based on two carriers, we get an overtone range based on those carriers, which means the resulting sound is not as bright as the one using two modulators on one carrier. Last but not least, you'll also find this small circle-like routing here. This is feedback. So this operator feeds back the result of its output back into itself, further distorting the sound. Feedback operators can be used to create saw waves, which otherwise isn't really possible on an FM synthesizer. Put this operator on top of another operator and increase the feedback level, and you'll end up with a nearly perfect saw wave. By the way, there is one algorithm only that lets you incorporate more than one operator into a feedback loop for extra heavy distortion. Here, the output of operator 3 is fed back into the carrier up to 7 times, which can create some super rough distortions or even a sound similar to noise, which then can be used to create hi-hat sounds or wind noises. Long story short, here's one rule of thumb for choosing the right algorithm. For sounds rich in overtones, which means bells, plucked strings, or noise or anything with a bit of sparkle, search for a big stack of modulators. For more mellow sounds, an algorithm with more carriers is preferable. You want to create a warm pad with multiple oscillators slightly detuned? Here's an algorithm for that. For brass and string sounds, choose an algorithm that has the feedback modulator close to the carrier. Yeah, and that's it for today. FM synthesis algorithms explained with some examples. And I hope you could follow along, and if you think there was something missing or inaccurate, please write it down in the comments politely. And if you want to support what I'm doing here financially, you can use the membership button under this video, or the super thanks button for one-time donations, or you can become a Patreon over on Patreon. And if you don't want to do that, liking and subscribing also helps a lot. As always, thanks for watching and see you again very, very soon. Bye bye.